What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome back to CK Café. Hope everyone is doing well today. This is Ethan Felizari Castillo. I'm so grateful that you're listening, wherever you're listening, whether it's on podcast platforms, watching on YouTube. Really appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to our show. Y'all, today we have an amazing guest. We have Mr. Paul Zaentz on the show. Now, if you would have told me that I would be interviewing Paul on CK Café, let alone be working with him on Backyard Desert, our feature film with CK, I would have told you you're crazy. Paul, if you don't know who he is a legendary independent producer. Him and his uncle and his family ran a really amazing independent film company. It was truly a family business. His uncle, you might recognize his name, Paul Zaentz. He had gone on to win a few Oscars, including the Irving G. Thalberg Award, which is only given out to a few people. Paul has worked on movies like The Talented Mr. Ripley. He's worked on Amadeus, Mosquito Coast. I mean, the list goes on and on. He's done so many classic films that have really shaped cinema history and really shaped independent cinema. And that's why we're so excited to be talking with him today. Paul has done an amazing thing with restoring some of Milos Forman's films. They include Amadeus, which he released last year, and this year there's a huge One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which we're talking about today on the show. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is going to be getting an exclusive run in U.S. theaters for 2 days in July with Fathom Events in 1,000 theaters nationwide. You can check it out at your local cinema on July 13th and July 16th, 2025. I highly recommend watching it in a theater. It is such an incredible film. What a classic movie. And to talk about the making of this film is just such an honor. Like I said, Paul is working on Backyard Desert. He is an executive producer on the project. Him and his partner Eugenia are working on our film and are pushing this film. And to hear the similarities between One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Backyard Desert in the sense of like how they tried to get it made and how we are trying to get it made is just so reassuring to remember that even some of the largest films in cinema history struggled to get made. It's easy to forget and to think you're in your own little bubble as an independent creative. So not just with our film, but I hope you can apply it to your projects. Doesn't matter if it's film, if it's music, if it's theater, whatever kind of project you're working on. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with Paul. I really am so grateful that he hopped on the show, and I hope you guys enjoy and get something great out of it. Thank you so much. Hey everyone, welcome back to CK Cafe. My name is Ethan Felizari Castillo, and today I am joined by an very accomplished producer, someone who we're so happy at CK to be collaborating with on Backyard Desert, and just overall amazing human being. Paul, welcome.
Well, thank you for that introduction.
Hey, it's very true. I am so happy to know that not only do you have probably the coolest credits I have ever seen from an independent producer, but you're also an amazing person as well. And I feel like sometimes those two, unfortunately, don't go hand in hand. So I appreciate you being so awesome and generous and kind all the time.
Well, thank you, but I've got to say I've been very fortunate with the people I've been able to work with over the years, and I just don't mean directors, it's the writers, the cast, the entire crew, production designers, cinematographers, composers. I've just been blessed.
It's truly amazing. I want to dive right into one specific film that your family had worked on that kind of started your career in this wild industry that is also getting a re-release right now. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's cinema history. I think we all know how amazing that film is. Obviously accomplished in the awards circuit, accomplished at the box office, but more than anything, it's one of those films that is just so powerful and so formative for so many people. Can you talk about the process of what that film was like, trying to get that thing made during a time period where there were definitely certain types of movies being made, and sort of the impact of that and how that's changed not just your life but cinema?
To go back in the history of the film, The book was written by Ken Kesey in 1962, and Kirk Douglas starred as McMurphy in an off-Broadway play, and he purchased the rights for the book, film rights. Well, back in 1962, Kirk Douglas was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, and he thought, okay, I'm a big star. I could play the lead and do the other financing. Well, every studio turned him down, saying, who wants to see a film about a man in a mental institution? He tried for about a decade to get this made before he was going to give up. And his son, Michael Douglas, who at the time was starring in the TV series Streets of San Francisco, let me try. Well, for 2 years, he got the same response from the studios. And finally, my Uncle Saul decided that he wanted to do a movie, and he met with Michael and Kirk. He bought the rights, and Michael was going to co-produce with him. And they went around to the studios and were told the same thing, the same old story for a dozen years. Who wants to see a movie about a man in a mental institution? Well, they hired Milos Forman to direct the film. And the reason the budget was so small, the plan was unknown actors, everyone working at small. And then Milos thought they needed a big name for the lead. And they hired Jack Nicholson, who the year before had done The Last Detail and Chinatown. And so the budget jumped from 1.8 to 3.9 million because you're paying Jack a good salary. You can't pay everybody else scale when there. Well, my family, between them and Saul, they were also all partners in the record company at the time. They said, well, we've got that money lying around. That was all they had. And said, let's make it ourselves. So they financed the movie. And as you said, the rest was history. Not only did it sweep the top five Academy Awards, but at the time it was either the sixth or seventh biggest box office movie worldwide of all time.
It's just insane to think about because when we see films that have such a huge impact, you automatically just assume like, oh, this film was made for so many millions of dollars. It's such a massive movie. And then, hearing the story about how your family was struggling to fund the movie and the people close to your Uncle Saul and the team making it had to do it themselves. It's such a testament to independent filmmakers everywhere. If you want to make it, you'll find a way to make it, whether that's digging into your own pocket or
That's
wherever.
what I tell people, don't give up on your passions and your dreams. I mean, it took 13 years for the film to get made.
13 years. Oh, wow.
And, and of course, Ken Kesey was not happy. Well, he claims he hated the film, but he also says he never saw the film. Uh, I mean, he could hate it based on the script because his book was told through the eyes of the Indian chief, where the movie is through McMurphy. And actually, just now, I just signed an agreement with Ken Kesey's widow and family to develop a television series where we will do it through the point of view of the chief for the first season. And then after the first season, it'll be what happens to the chief after he escapes.
So amazing. That's so exciting. I think it's such a great story, and it feels like there's so much there. I've never read the book, but I've heard that the book dives in even deeper. It's interesting to see and to hear that it's going to be expanded into something else. I'm so excited about that. It's one of those stories I feel like the only way to do it justice, if you're going to try and redo a masterpiece like this or remake a masterpiece in any kind of way, a series feels like just the best way to do it because you can dive in a way that 2 hour plus film can't. It's pretty amazing. That's really cool.
And tell the story from a totally different point of view.
Exactly.
If anybody came up to me and said, we want to remake your movie, I would say absolutely not, because there's no way I would let anyone touch Milos's
Yeah.
film.
Yeah. I think the problem with remakes right now, it's like too many people are just trying to remake the movie or remake the thing that was once popular or once was created, and instead of bringing new life to source material like this one.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Well,
Wow.
what I really despise about remakes is when a person remakes a classic movie. I mean, why would you redo a classic film and some almost scene by scene? If there was a film that had a great concept but was a terrible film, then remake that one, but don't remake Psycho. I tended to agree with you about the great thing about series, even a limited series of 8 to 10 hours. You have all that time for more character development, introduce more characters, more subplots. And I always said that until I saw the series Ripley, where after watching the 8 hours, I said, well, wait a minute. In 2 hours, Minghella had more character development, introduced new characters, had more subplots than there were in this 8 hour
Uh,
miniseries. It it really disturbed me that they could do something like
yeah,
that.
I think sometimes it's either one or the other. It could be so amazing to dive in a series, but it could also just end up being just way too long and not enough happens. And if
Yeah,
people are trying to fill in time, I feel with some series, it's like, okay, I got 8 hours.
yeah,
How do I make the 8 hours be filled with random stuff?
and and then there was a series based on the Mosquito Coast, where after 2 seasons they hadn't even gotten to the Mosquito Coast yet. And then they canceled the series. I mean, that was dragging it out a little
I think
too
a little bit
much.
too much. Oh man, that's wild. That's wild. So this isn't your first time, I guess, working on a project that one of the works of either you or your uncle and your family's company has been remade into something else. So that's a pretty exciting thing to be leading the charge with something new. That's really cool.
It started this thing. The first movie I worked on with Milos Forman was Amadeus, and Milos had 14 months to edit that movie. And so it was released in September of 1984. That was what Milos considered the best cut of the movie because there was no time restraints on it. So it was a 2 hour and 38-minute movie. Well, in 2001, Warner Brothers came to us and said they'd like to put out a DVD where there are scenes for Cuckoo's Nest and Amadeus that Milos would like to have. And Milos was adamant he would not change a single frame about Cuckoo's Nest. But he said there's some scenes on Amadeus that he could put back in if they want. And he put them back in, and Warner Brothers released it, calling it the director's cut, which Milos hated. He said, my original cut was the director's cut. This is the DVD cut. And we always had to restore the original, which hadn't been available for over 20 years. And we did it last year in time for the 40th anniversary of Amadeus. And it was shown at the Cinema Retrovato in Bologna. And Gianluca, the director of the festival, says to me, well, next year is the 50th anniversary of Cuckoo's Nest. Yeah, I do know that, Gianluca. And he said, well, why don't you restore that too? We could show it here next year. Well, we did, but I realized it would be ready in time for a Cannes Film Festival. And Cannes has a classics program, and they accepted it. And we showed it in May in Cannes. And afterwards, so many people came up to me and said, my God, this movie could have been made last week. It's so relevant today. And I said, of course, that's why it's a classic. That's why it's one of the best movies of all time. And it's a film about rebellion, and as with the book, and it's so relevant to what's going on in the United States today. People are finally starting to rebel against this malignant narcissist that wants to become a dictator and end democracy in the United States.
Can you talk about that relevance more, because I think that's been something that in rewatching the film recently, I feel like it's one of those films, like you said, that it just is eerily. It feels like, whoa, did Milos Forman, did the whole team just have like a time machine or something and come to our time period right now and see something we didn't. I mean, what was that like, restoring the movie and now gearing it up for a release in July in screens all over the country?
It'll be on over 1,000 screens in the United States on July 13th and 16th. Then later this year, it'll be released in theaters over most of the
Wow.
world.
Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, to think that it's going to be all over the world again in cinemas, I think the best way to experience it. Can you speak a little bit more to like what audiences have said to you and about that relevance and how that sort of
Okay, well,
changed?
I think we have to go back to when Milos was hired to direct it. He had only been living in the United States for a few years, and his English was, shall we put it, not quite perfect. And his American friends would say to him, would challenge him, how dare you direct this movie? This is an American story. It's an American story. And Milos would say, yes, to you Americans, this is a story. But for me, who grew up under the Nazis, this is real life. And when he looked at it, Nurse Ratched represented the governments that he grew up under. And unlike our government now, I mean, Nurse Ratched really thought that she was doing the right thing to help people. Now, I don't believe for one second Trump and his minions and his bosses and the oligarchs think they're helping people. They're just greedy, evil people.
Yeah, no, you're so right, and I mean, just to see the relevance of it, what things symbolize. I mean, I think this is the perfect film for people now, and I really hope, the people who do show up aren't just people who are fans of the film, but I hope that this, kind of gives the film a resurgence with the new generation. Have you seen that at film
There
festivals?
were so many people at Cannes and at the Academy in LA and in Bologna who had never seen the film before.
It is so important, I think, for young people and for people my age and people who've never seen the movie to go and check the film out, because I think also the experience of seeing it in a theater as opposed to seeing it on a laptop or on your screen at home is just also so different. And like, you know,
Oh, of
it's just
course.
I detest watching movies on any device that isn't a massive theatrical screen. I struggle to go and watch movies even on streaming or television because of that reason, because I much prefer being in a theater. So that experience to see this film, which I've never seen in a theater, I'm looking forward to. I can't wait. It's going to be really
Well,
really cool.
it was on a massive screen in Bologna. It was outdoors in Piazza Maggiore. I mean, the sound was incredible. When you think about the piazza that could hold 6,000 people, and yet the sound would still be great.
How many people were at the festival in Bologna?
About 6,000. There are chairs set up for, I think, 3,000. Then the piazza is lined with cafes that have a view of the screen, and those seats were all full. And then there were thousands just seated on the ground watching it.
Man, I saw a few pictures online. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, how many people here? Where did everyone fit? How did it? But that's what a great experience for those people to see the film, and especially for those people that didn't see the film before. What a way to watch it for the first time, huh?
Yeah, and it's funny, afterwards, so many people came up not only to congratulate me on restoring the film, but also how much they appreciated as Italians or French and Germans on what I said before, which was not only denouncing Trump, but talking about what happened on June 14th, the millions of people that were marching, and please don't give up on the United States.
I'm so happy that the film is showing overseas at these festivals, because I think it's everybody. It's everybody around the world, because what happens in the U.S. affects everybody. We are one global community, and we need to stand up. It's just no choice.
Yeah, and I've been talking to people from Bulgaria and Hungary, and they say, you don't know what's going on. The right-wing money is pouring into our countries, and they're doing the same lies that Trump and his people are doing. Plus, we have the Russians broadcasting into our country. They say, you don't know what's going on. It's so scary for us.
Even when you look back at previous administrations, it never has felt like this, where now this is a complete lie and this is disregarding everything America was built on, and like
I
not
mean,
even argue, not even a discussion with civility. Like everything that's happening is just
exactly.
it's insane to think.
I mean, that's the
Yeah,
problem. You could disagree with people's policies, political policies, but these are immoral, indecent, cruel people. They don't care about anything.
I think what's so beautiful about film and about art and what we do, while I think oftentimes it could feel very insignificant to the world's problems, it is so significant in the sense where it helps us be able to understand our current systems. And I think movies like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest helps give to different kind of way of thinking and looking at things and context to what's going on. I think so many of the films that you've worked on too have really powerful messages, and that really ring true, not just then but also now.
Almost every film we've done is about a rebel. I mean, Mozart was a rebel. Harrison Ford was a rebel in Mosquito Coast. Daniel Day-Lewis in Unbearable Lightness of Being. Goya and Goya's Ghost. The ironic thing about this is when we were shooting Amadeus back in Prague in 1983, what was a communist country, and there was really nothing to do on Sundays. So I had brought over a whole bunch of video cassettes, and we'd rent a room in the hotel on Sundays, and we'd show movies to the crew. And of course, after a while, checks came in because they learned about it. Hotel staff would come in. And one afternoon, Sunday afternoon, I showed One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And the next day, I was stopped by members of the Czech secret police and questioned about showing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And of course, I admitted I did. And they said, well, do you know this movie was banned in our country? And of course, I did. I played innocent. But here it is, 42 years later, I'm going to the festival in Karlovy Vary in the Czech Republic, and I'm going to talk about this. Here, I was banned from showing it in the Czechoslovakia, and now we got to worry about being banned in the United
My
States.
goodness, yeah. That's it's just so crazy how things like this come around, and how important these stories are. Not just the stories of the film itself, but also the stories of what you all went through, not just making it but screening it and then going on afterwards many years later to hear stories like that. Just, yeah, insane. And you're right, the fear I think for a lot of people is obviously they're banning books right now, and that's horrendous to even think about. But when it comes time for them to start banning movies and TV and music, and it's
Yeah.
like, you ban one thing, it's a waterfall of other things that are going to start happening. It
Mhm.
is terrifying to think about the dark path we are going down.
Well, when Milosh was doing The People versus Larry Flint, and Larry Flint was the publisher of Hustler magazine, and the government was labeling him as a pornographer, and they wanted to shut him down. And I asked Milosh, what attracts you to this project? And he said, for me, it's all about freedom of speech. He said, under the Nazis, under the communists, the first thing they all tried to ban was pornography. And then once they were able to do that, it's just a slippery slope. We're going to ban this, we're going to ban this, we're going to ban this.
One thing happens, it's going to keep going down, and it's
Mhm.
man, yeah, it's insane. I think what's so amazing about your career, you've been able to champion, not just stories that politically are feel charged, but also stories that are independent. And I think independent cinema is something that we're in a weird place with independent cinema where it seems to be very in demand. It seems more independent films are doing better and better at the box office, or they have longer lives outside of just the
Mhm.
standard distribution model. From your perspective, as someone who's been in the industry and has worked on these types of films, where do you feel the independent cinema landscape is right now? What kind of advice do you have for filmmakers trying to make their features and make their projects?
I mean, it's so difficult today that since COVID, people have stopped going to the theaters. In the San Francisco area, almost every single independent theater has closed down. And if you go to the chains, I mean, okay, what tentpole picture is coming out this week? And if they have 12 screens, that picture will be playing in five of them. It's really film festival route. Just keep trying. I know a lot of people know they're making them to be shown on your computer, on your laptop. Just keep at it if you're passionate about it. Don't let people squash your dreams.
Yeah, it's an interesting time because while there's more accessibility to stuff, right? I think like the fact that you can buy cinema cameras for 3 grand or less, it's amazing. I mean, even just the iPhone, right? Like now the newest
Mhm.
iPhone being able to shoot on ProRes and have that kind of cinema quality, it's incredible to see. But at the same time, yeah, it's like, okay, you can make the thing, but part of the movie business is not just making the thing, it's also selling the thing and getting it out there and
It-
getting people to see it,
Yeah,
and that's the hardest part now. Is like it feels like a lot of people have the ability, the access to be able to make it, but not the access to be able to get things distributed, which has been a
I,
real
and it's a shame because some of these big streamers, the movies that they make are such crap. They'll make one streamer will make 20 Christmas movies every year, and one's worse than the next. And I said, well, why don't you just look at some of these independent films and support them? And oh, it's basically a formula. They fit things in. And you try to watch two or three of these movies, and it's like, well, wait a minute, it's the same movie with a different cast.
it just feels like they pop in the same exact script and then just redo it.
Like different locations,
Couple different character
it,
names, a few different big name
it's
actors.
very, very
Yeah,
sad.
I always think like if one of these larger streamers just gave 5 independent movies a try every year, I guarantee you
Hmm.
they would do so well, especially because so many people, especially younger generation, even younger than me in their teens, they're not going to movie theaters often. If they're going to movie theaters, they're only seeing large format movies. They're going to see their superhero films, or even if it's a drama or something, it has to be to that big scale that something like Sinners was, or Oppenheimer.
That speaking of that, I think it was a couple of years ago. I went to the movies to see The Holdovers. And when that movie was over, I turned to my partner and said, if the studios would make more movies like this, they'd get people back into the theaters. There were no
Yeah.
explosions, no car chases, just a well acted movie with a great
Yeah.
script, a really good director.
And it's so funny how a movie that's so simple in concept too ended up being one of the best movies that year, and just such an emotional film that everyone seemed to relate to, and it felt very timeless.
That's it. You need the audience to emotionally
Yeah.
connect to the film,
Yeah.
and they've lost track of
Yeah.
that.
If every large chain, every big cinema just said, okay, we're going to have, we have 12 screens, we have 15 screens or 20 screens, we're going to put 30% of those screens are going to be dedicated to smaller films, independent films, or even some of them by the larger studios, international films, whatever it is. And I know people would come out. But the problem I see online, on threads or Instagram or whatever it is, I have seen people have discussions saying, like, I want to see this movie, but I can't. It's not playing anywhere.
Yeah,
And the nearest theater for me is
exactly.
5 hours away that's showing it. I miss films all the time that I'm dying to see, and I can't watch it unless I go and wait for them to eventually get on demand and buy it or rent it or something, because most likely.
And you live in New
And I
York
live in
where
New
there's
exactly.
independent
It's
theaters.
crazy where there's I think there's more independent theaters here. I think it's here in LA that have the most out of anywhere else in the
Oh,
country.
definitely.
And even so, the times are bad. Even the small independent theaters, they're like, okay, we got 10 movies coming in the next few weeks, but these ones are much smaller, have smaller names, so unfortunately they're getting the 2 p.m. and the 5 p.m. And it's like, and
Right.
then you're putting up some great movies. A24, Neon, these distributors are doing some
Mhm.
great things, but those are the ones that are getting the priority too. So then any movie that's smaller than that is just not getting
Yeah.
seen either. It's
Yeah.
this weird battle back and forth.
Yeah.
It's something that I think independent filmmakers have always fought for, and the distribution model has never been perfect, but yeah.
Well, it was, I'll tell you what, it was a lot better when Cuckoo's Nest came out
Yeah.
because Cuckoo's Nest came out in four theaters and it was not a lot of money spent on print on ads. It was word of mouth. And that's how films were mostly promoted back then, word of mouth.
Yeah.
You didn't spend millions and millions on advertising.
And now people are spending double their budget on advertising.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
exactly.
Yeah, I feel like that's also something that doesn't happen anymore. From having worked a lot in like the marketing space of films, I've noticed that before, what a lot of people have told me is like the model was also dependent on success, where it's like if your film did really well within a first month, because they would give you a month, maybe, depending on the theater. If it
Mhm.
did well, enough people talked about it, got some good reviews, it could expand and keep going and keep going and keep going.
Right.
And it's so funny, you think about it now, it's like everybody seems to be just doing the theaters out of courtesy because they really just want to get back to streaming.
If a film doesn't do good on the first Friday night, forget
Oh my
about it. That's the end of
gosh, I'm like, I can't even believe it. Like how many people judge a movie, like the distributors and the theaters even have conditioned us to look at opening weekend and say
it.
flop or
Hmm.
not. And it's like
Yep.
online on social media, that's the whole discussion. Oh, this movie was a flop. It made $100 million. It made $100 million at the box office opening weekend. Flop because it was a $600 million film. And it's just like, whoa, hold on. Let's give it a
Yeah,
second.
it's not the dollars that's made. It was a good. Was it a good
Was it a good
movie or
movie?
not?
Number one, was it a good movie? Two, it's only been 3 days. Like, allow it a little bit of
Yeah.
time to breathe. But now I think there's a resurgence of independent film from the creators side. I think there's going to be a really nice boom, and I'm looking forward to it. I hope our film Backyard Desert, I hope we can sort of ride that wave but emulate the success of a movie like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where we make it with whatever we can to the best of our ability and just make a story that people
Hmm.
love, and hopefully people get excited about it. To echo what you said before, all that really matters, you got a good script, you got a good story, you got some great
You
talent.
got a
That's it.
good script for Backyard Desert. Definitely a good
i
script.
i hope so.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. It's been amazing working with you so far, and it's eye opening even to just hear you speak today, talking about the hardships of making a movie like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which to me feels like a slam dunk, but obviously that's way after the fact. I don't even know how anyone could pass up on a movie like that, no matter the subject matter. But
I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, when we went to make Amadeus 8 years after Cuckoo's Nest, same director, internationally acclaimed play. No one in the United States wanted to do a film about Mozart. No one would finance it. So again, we financed it ourselves. To tell you how the studios thought back then, or maybe even still now, we could not, Milos could not find an actor that he wanted to play Mozart. I mean, he he had casting sessions with people all over. Somewhere there's a tape of Mick Jagger trying out for Mozart. And Milos' agent got a call from the president of one of the studios in Hollywood saying, I got the perfect Mozart for you. Milos's agent, Robbie Lance, who had come over from Eastern Europe a long time ago in the 30s. And so he says to the president, who is it? And the studio president says, Walter Matthau. And Robbie doesn't know what to say. So he's stalling for time and he goes, I didn't hear you. Who'd you say? He goes, Walter Matthau. Now, Robbie doesn't want to insult the guy, but he finally says, but Mozart died when he was 35 years old. The studio president says, but this is America. Who would know? Well, years later, we found out that Walter Matthau was a friend that the studio had, and he called asking if he would call the agent about the role of Salieri, which makes perfect sense.
Ah, that's so funny.
But nowadays, is how many social media followers does this actor have?
Yep. Yeah. Are they an influencer before or are they actor first? And yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, it's never been easy to make independent film, and it continues to be hard, but
No,
we make it anyway.
no. Well, when somebody tells me they've completed the film, I would just go, congratulations. They go, but we don't have distribution or anything. I said, it doesn't matter. Just to complete a film, that's a major achievement.
That's completely true. You have to love it so much because what you go through making a film is just my hair is starting to fall out. I've had to grow it just so I can it looks like I still have something there.
And you're only
Yeah.
19.
Oh no. That's how we all think as filmmakers is like I got to just make this thing, and yeah, we forget because we
Mhm.
we we allow the success of other independent films to judge the success of our own. So I think it's so important that we go out and support, and that people go out and support One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest as well. That's although it's been a film that people have supported for years. I think getting a re-release in the
Yeah,
U.S. is, no small feat. I mean, congratulations to
I
you and the
know
team.
when Fathom Events, we're talking, they're going to release it. I'm thinking, 250, 300, 400 theaters. When they told me they had over 1,000 theaters sign up, I was almost speechless.
I mean, it makes total sense. I think the theaters are going to be absolutely packed. They're going to be demanding for more days. Well, congratulations on all the success with the film once again. To restore the film is such it's a challenge, and to you and your whole team restoring the film, congratulations. Really amazing.
Working with the Academy in LA and Roundabout Entertainment and Audio Mechanics, who did the actual work. They also had done Amadeus last year. Wonderful people. And then you look at what Milos did, who he cast in that movie. I mean, besides Jack Nicholson, I mean, nobody knew who Louise Fletcher was. Nobody knew Danny DeVito, Brad Dourif, Christopher Lloyd, William Redfield. I mean, Milos' casting in almost all his movies is flawless. And then there's some actors that you didn't hear of. They give great performances in his movies, and then you never hear from him or her again, which shows you what an amazing director Milos Forman was. I mean, in my opinion, one of the best directors in the history of cinema.
Yeah, especially with the actor, what he's been able to do in all of his films with actors and get performances out of them. I think a lot of directors are visual first, and there's something to be said about that. But I mean, Milos Forman does something so beautiful with both his visuals and then also his talent, and never forgetting about the
Mhm.
people on screen. That's such a hard thing to do, and it's something that I think a lot
Yeah,
of filmmakers can learn from.
yeah, and he's generous to all the actors. His idea in Cuckoo's Nest was, I want to have a second camera just to shoot reactions from the people in the institution. I mean, it's brilliant.
So great. Ah, that's so amazing. Well, Paul, I don't want to take any more of your time. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Well, thank you, Ethan.
Thank you.
Good speaking with
Yeah,
you
it's great
again.
speaking with you. Thank you all so much for watching CK Cafe and for listening. We really appreciate all of the support. Thank you once again to Paul for his time and for giving us all this insight. It's just so amazing to hear about the making of this film and even more about the relevance that it has in today's world. Films like this can be so timeless, and art just in general can just be so timeless. So if you are around on July 13th and on July 16th, please go check out One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, playing in theaters nationwide. You can find out more information at fathomentertainment.com or check your local theater for showtimes. Thank you all so much once again. We will see you very soon on CK Café. Until next time, bye.